A black woman walked into the courthouse. Calm, composed. But seconds later, her dignity was on the floor. No reason, no warning. At the hands of those who swore to uphold the law. They shaved her head. Not with words, with hands meant to humiliate. And then, they laughed, like it was a game. But that was their biggest mistake. They thought she was just another face in the crowd. What stood before them was a storm, ready to speak the system's own language. With the law in hand, she came back to turn the tables. Now the judgment is hers to deliver. And this time, it's not just cases being exposed. Some masks are coming off too. It began like any other morning, until it didn't. She entered the courthouse with the grace of routine, unaware her entire presence would trigger something ugly. The kind of ugliness that wears a badge and thinks itself untouchable. She was calm, composed. Her name was Celeste Monroe. What they saw, though, was something else entirely. Someone they thought they could disregard. They were wrong. Because Celeste wasn't just another black woman walking through metal detectors. She wasn't just a visitor. She wasn't just someone. She was the one person with the authority to hold every single one of them accountable. But Deputy Hank Riker didn't know that when he saw her approaching the security line. He didn't see power. He didn't see position. He saw something he thought was beneath him, and acted accordingly. She reached the checkpoint at exactly 8:03 a.m., heels tapping against stone like a clock ticking toward reckoning. Her blazer was pressed, her posture unshaken. In one hand she carried a worn leather folio. In the other, an unshakable sense of purpose. "Step out of line," Riker barked, already halfway in her path. She paused, just long enough to register the hostility. "Is there a reason?" His eyes scanned her, slow and sharp, searching for a reason to assert himself. She carried no visible ID, because she never wore it publicly. Not unless necessary. She preferred entering places like a citizen, not a symbol. "You can't come in here like that," he muttered, gaze lingering where it shouldn't. Celeste opened her blazer with composure and revealed her federal credentials. The seal shimmered under the overhead lights. He took them from her hand without looking and slipped them into his pocket like they were nothing. "I'll need that back," she said. "You in a hurry, sweetheart?" he asked, stepping in close. That word, sweetheart. A trigger delivered with a smirk. She held her ground. "I'm heading to a courtroom. You'll go where I tell you," he snapped, motioning to a side hallway. And just like that, she was pulled away from the main flow of people. Out of view, out of reach. The door shut behind them. The room was cold, silent, windowless. The kind of place meant to make people feel small. There was a chair, a rolling cart, and on that cart, clippers. "I don't consent to this search," she stated. Her voice was low, but every syllable landed with intent. "You're acting suspicious, that's enough," he said, gesturing to the chair. She didn't move. Then 2 more officers entered. One grabbed her wrist, the other stood behind her. No names, no explanations, just pressure. "This is unlawful," she said louder now, but no one listened. Riker held up the clippers. "What are you doing?" she demanded. "Protocol," he replied. "You could be hiding something in that hair." The buzz echoed before she could react. Then came the cold press to her scalp. Then a lock fell. Then another. Thick, silver strands. Years of heritage, of pride, tumbled to the tile like they didn't matter. She didn't scream. She didn't blink. But something inside her shifted. A guard laughed. "She looks better already." Riker chuckled, brushing hair off his sleeve. "Now you look professional." She sat there, fists white-knuckled, voice steel. "You'll regret this." He smirked. "People like you always say that." And with that, it was over. He opened the door, gestured toward the hall. "You're free to go," he said. "Courtroom's that way." She stood slowly, took her badge back without a word, walked out. But something was burning now, beneath the quiet, deeper than rage. And what they didn't know was that she wasn't walking into a courtroom. She was walking to her bench. He fidgeted, just barely, but enough to betray everything. A slight twitch of the hands, a shifting of weight, like a man who suddenly felt the walls close in. Like he knew deep down that something irreversible was coming. He was right. After the second witness, Judge Celeste Monroe called a recess. The courtroom thinned out in stunned silence. Even the attorneys spoke in whispers, like the room itself might punish them for being too loud. But Celeste didn't move. She sat motionless on the bench, her hands folded, gaze forward, waiting. When the room had emptied, save for her clerk, 2 court officers, and Hank Riker, she finally broke the silence. "Deputy Riker," she said. Her voice, sharp and clear, rang out like a verdict. He froze mid-step. "Step forward." His mouth opened, stammered. Yes, Your Honor." She pointed to the open center of the courtroom. He moved, slowly, awkwardly, like a man walking a tightrope toward judgment. "State your full name for the record." He blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." A beat passed. Then, Hank Riker. "How long have you served as a bailiff in this courthouse?" 14 years. She tapped her pen twice against the desk, then leaned forward, her eyes locked on him. "And in those 14 years, how many women have you assaulted in that screening room?" Color drained from his face. Your Honor, I didn't know. That's not what I asked." He looked around, hoping for rescue. No one moved. "How many complaints have been filed against you, Deputy Riker?" I'm not sure." Celeste's tone shifted, not louder but sharper, more surgical. 12, she said. 12 formal complaints, all swept under the rug, buried under paperwork, dismissed under the excuse of protocol. Riker's jaw twitched. "I didn't know who you were. I thought, and that's the problem, isn't it?" she snapped. "You thought I was no one. Just another black woman you could intimidate, harass, humiliate." The room had gone still again, the kind of stillness that comes before a reckoning. "You didn't even ask my name." Riker tried to speak. Failed. Celeste stood slowly from the bench. "Because of you, the credibility of this court is in question. Because of your actions, a federal judge was violated in her own courthouse." Her words dropped like stones. "Effective immediately," she said, turning to the officers by the door. "Deputy Hank Riker is to be taken into custody. Do not place him in general population. Formal charges are being filed." The 2 officers moved quickly, cuffs already drawn. Wait! Riker shouted, backing up. "You can't do this!" But she already had. He was led away, hands behind his back, face pale, trembling. The badge he had worn like armor stripped from him without a word. And yet the silence that followed was heavier than the act itself. The ceiling fan buzzed louder. Clerks exchanged glances, some ashamed, some exposed. They had all known, and none of them had spoken. Celeste returned to her seat. The robe draped across her shoulders now felt like steel. There would be no going back to how things were. Not for her. Not for the room. Her clerk stepped in quietly, holding a stack of case files. "Your Honor," she said, hesitant. "The next witnesses are being prepped." "How long?" "About 8 minutes." Celeste nodded, but her gaze had already drifted out to the gallery. The benches were empty now, but the shadow of what had happened still lingered, like a stain that refused to be scrubbed away. The door creaked behind her. She turned. A young intern entered, glasses fogged, breath shaky. Megan. Quiet, always polite. Her voice barely registered. "I saw it," she whispered. "Outside the screening room. I didn't know what to do. I should have stopped it." Celeste didn't answer right away. She studied the girl's trembling hands. Then, gently, "Thank you. That matters." "I didn't stop it," Megan said again. "But you're speaking now," Celeste replied. "That's more than most. If you need me to testify, I will." Celeste reached out, laid her hand softly over the girl's. No words. Just wait. Then another creak. The courtroom doors. The public was returning. "All rise," called the clerk, her voice stronger this time. Everyone did, even the ones who had once laughed at Riker's jokes. Celeste stepped forward. No bailiff announced her. No ceremony. Just her robe brushing the bench as she sat. The courtroom wasn't the same anymore. Because this wasn't just a hearing. It was a reckoning. He cleared his throat, trying to center himself, hands folded too neatly in his lap. Celeste studied him. The posture, the rehearsed calm, the eyes that gave away just a flicker of discomfort. She knew the type. Decorated, trained, and practiced in the art of delivering half-truths with polished poise. The prosecutor's voice broke the stillness. "Lieutenant Cook, you were present at the demonstration on May 14th of last year. Is that correct?" "Yes, ma'am." "And you oversaw a team of 7 officers during that time?" "Yes, that's correct." "Did you personally authorize the use of force against protesters?" Cook leaned into the microphone, voice crisp like a press release. "I authorized non-lethal crowd control after demonstrators turned aggressive. There was yelling, some pushing. A few had bottles, 1 or 2 rocks." "Any injuries from your team?" "No, ma'am." And the injuries reported by protesters? Minor, he said. Bruises, some cuts. Before the next question could land, Celeste cut in. Lieutenant Cook. He turned, startled. Yes, Your Honor. Do you consider a crushed trachea minor? The room held its breath. No. Of course not, Your Honor. Celeste leaned forward. Then why did your official report describe it as soft tissue trauma consistent with resistance? He hesitated. That's standard phrasing, based on initial impressions. Impressions from whom? He shifted. Officer Valdez filled that section in. And did you review and approve it? A beat passed. Then, yes, Your Honor. Knowing the victim was 17 and unarmed, Cook opened his mouth, closed it. Yes. Do you believe justice was served that day? He flinched. I believe we followed protocol. That wasn't my question. Silence stretched thin between them. With respect, Your Honor. That's not a question I'm authorized to answer. Celeste sat back, gaze unwavering. Number. It's not. But it is one I am. She nodded at the prosecutor. Continue. The rest of the questioning was clinical. Dates, numbers, procedures. But every word cut deeper, because what was being described wasn't a one-time failure. It was a system that called damage standard, that turned shattered bones into routine. When recess was called again, the air felt thicker. People moved slower. Lawyers whispered. Advocates scribbled notes with trembling pens. A woman in the back clutched her chest, mouthing the words, "Thank you," as Celeste passed by. Back in chambers, she removed her robe and hung it on the hook. It looked so harmless there. Plain black fabric, still and quiet. But outside that door, it carried the weight of her authority. Earlier that same day, without that robe, she had been treated like she didn't matter. Assaulted, stripped, laughed at. Nothing about her had changed since then, except the robe. And that truth lived in her bones now. A knock broke her reflection. Her clerk entered. Your Honor, someone from the DOJ is here. Says it's urgent. Send them in. A man stepped in. Gray suit, clean posture, holding a sealed envelope. Judge Monroe, he said. Office of Civil Rights. We've launched a federal review. What happened this morning? That wasn't just misconduct. It's a Title 18 violation. And now that we know the victim was a sitting judge, Celeste stayed silent. She didn't need to say a word. We're investigating the entire courthouse, he continued. The cover-ups. Suppressed reports. All of it. Start with the ones who buried Riker's complaints, she said. Then the judges who let him keep his badge. The man nodded, like he already expected her to say it. One more thing, he added at the door. The footage from this morning. It's everywhere. National. Viral. Even the Senate's talking. She didn't blink. I didn't do it for them. He smiled. That's why it matters. When he left, she sat down, slow, deliberate. Outside, the next round of attorneys had already begun to gather. She could hear their shuffling, their whispers, their nerves. The day wasn't over. Not even close. Because this wasn't about a single bailiff anymore. This was about the mask being pulled off something bigger. And she wasn't done tearing it down. I will not recuse myself, Celeste said, each word delivered like a final nail. And if you believe the facts of this case can't hold under my authority, you're welcome to appeal. I'll even provide the forms myself. She struck the gavel. Once. Sharp. Final. Next witness. The room shifted. This time it wasn't a protester. Not a victim. A woman in a sharp blazer and dark-rimmed glasses took the stand. Mid-40s. Calm. Precise. Celeste recognized her the moment she entered. Not just from records, but from memory. Denise Talley. Records supervisor for nearly a decade. Efficient. Quiet. Always stayed out of the spotlight. Until now. She was sworn in, adjusted her seat, and folded her hands. The prosecutor stepped forward. Ms. Talley, can you tell us about your former position at this courthouse? I was head of records for 8 years, Denise replied evenly. Before that, I worked the front desk. And in your time here, were you aware of complaints filed against Deputy Hank Riker? Her expression hardened. Yes, too many. Can you estimate? 12 formal complaints, she said, and at least twice as many informal ones. And what happened to those complaints? Denise's eyes flicked to Celeste, then back to the courtroom. Some were marked resolved when they weren't. Others vanished. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Who gave that instruction? Denise hesitated. Then, Judge Terrence Mahoney. The name struck like a lightning bolt. Mahoney. Retired. Reputable. Celeste's former mentor. And now, undeniably part of the rot. Why? the prosecutor asked. He said, Denise answered, voice faltering. Bringing those forward would weaken the courthouse, erode public trust. Celeste remained perfectly still. That excuse, justice delayed in the name of appearance, was one she'd heard too many times. And it rang loud now, in every clerk who looked away, every judge who signed the wrong line. Denise continued, voice rising now. I watched Riker roam these halls unchecked. I watched young black interns get pulled for extra screening, watched witnesses walk away scared, and every time I raised a concern, I was told, that's just how it is. She paused. Not anymore. Celeste called for a recess. The courtroom stood. As she descended from the bench, someone near the back whispered, she's not just running this courtroom. She's rewriting it. And he was right. Because this wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a reckoning. By early afternoon, the steps of the courthouse swelled with people. What started with a few journalists had grown into hundreds. Protesters, citizens, community leaders. Young and old. Black, white, Latino. Some with signs, others with nothing but presence. Inside, Celeste stood by her window, robe off, hands behind her back. She read the signs from behind the glass. Justice starts now. Protect black women. 12 complaints. 0 accountability. She closed her eyes, not to escape, but to feel it. All of it. Another knock. Her clerk entered, followed by a man Celeste hadn't seen in years. Reverend Marcus Hill. He stepped in with the weight of time behind him. His beard fully silvered, eyes heavy but kind. Judge Monroe, he said. Reverend, she replied, standing. I won't take long. I just came to say, we're out there. We see you. And we're with you. She swallowed the lump rising in her throat. He handed her a folded page. These people outside, they've got stories too. Some were never heard. But they're ready now. She unfolded it. Names, numbers, notes scribbled in margins. It was longer than she expected. How many are new? Most. Some go back years. They were scared, or told it wouldn't matter. They were wrong, she said quietly. It matters now. He nodded. Because of you. She didn't answer. She didn't need to. The silence said enough. When she returned to the bench, the courtroom was packed. The energy had changed again. Now it wasn't just formality that made people stand. It was respect. It was recognition. She tapped the gavel. We're ready to proceed. By now, the courtroom wasn't just full. It was iconic. National news had arrived. The Washington Post, even BBC, tucked shoulder to shoulder into the gallery like they were documenting a historic verdict. A row of young black law students sat in the front pew, notebooks balanced in their laps, absorbing every word like scripture. This was no longer about Charleston. It was about something far greater. Celeste entered without spectacle. She tapped the gavel once. This court is in session. She didn't waste time. Before we begin closing arguments, I am submitting new material into the record. Her clerk delivered the folders, one to each table. These include all complaints previously filed against Deputy Hank Riker, the communications that suppressed them, and the names of every official who signed those dismissals. The defense lawyer shifted to speak. Sit down, she said. Not loud, but enough. She turned to the gallery. Let the record show. We are no longer protecting broken systems over broken people, and we are no longer mistaking silence for neutrality. She held up the folder. Every name in this file made a decision. Not a clerical error, not oversight. A decision to look away, to cover, to excuse. And it ends today. The room stilled. You could hear someone's pen stop moving. And then, from the far side of the room, a voice. Your Honor? A man stood at the doorway, hat in his trembling hands. Celeste gave a single nod. My name is Louis Bryant, he said. In 2011, I was arrested right here by Riker for raising my voice after my daughter's case got thrown out. He slammed me into a wall, broke 2 ribs. Did you file a complaint? She asked. I did. They told me I fell. That's what they wrote. I never came back. He scanned the room. But I'm here now. Celeste stood slowly. Is there anyone else? Silence. Then a hand. Then 2. Then 5. Then the room began to rise. One story after another. Years of silence turning into sound. She didn't interrupt. Didn't speak. She just let truth take the floor. It wasn't whispered. It wasn't hidden behind robes or badges anymore. It was loud. It was real. It was overdue. The final day of the hearing arrived with rain. Not the kind that cleared the air, but a relentless downpour. The kind Charleston hadn't seen in months. Still, they came. Protesters, reporters, Survivors, clerks, interns, soaked, determined, and carrying signs like shields, because by now everyone knew this wasn't just justice. This was a moment in history. Inside, the courtroom buzzed like electricity waiting for a lightning strike. Celeste entered in silence. No robe, no gavel. She walked to the bench, folded her robe gently, and placed it over the chair. She stood bare. No symbols, no shields. I've worn the robe, delivered rulings, kept the tone, followed the form, but I've also stayed silent. And today, that ends. She turned to face the gallery. Her voice didn't waver. This court finds Deputy Hank Riker guilty of abuse of power, guilty of violating civil rights, guilty of official misconduct. She stepped forward. This court recommends immediate review of every complaint tied to his name, and formal investigation into anyone who helped him hide. Then she lifted a new folder. This is the Monroe Mandate. She raised it so everyone could see. Effective immediately. Mandatory anti-bias training, psychological screening, regular evaluations, and zero tolerance for any discriminatory behavior in this courthouse. I will carry this to the circuit, to the judiciary, to the Senate, if I must, because what happened to me should have never happened to anyone. No one clapped. They didn't need to. I want to be clear. This was never about revenge. It's about responsibility, about saying, not anymore. Then she turned to the side entrance. Bring him in. The doors opened. Hank Riker entered in cuffs, uniform gone, face pale, power stripped. He stood before her, hollow. Mr. Riker, Celeste said, this court sentences you to the maximum allowable penalty under federal law. 6 years for abuse of power, 5 for civil rights violations, 1 for obstruction. She let the silence sit. But that's just the legal sentence. She stepped forward again. Here's the human one. You spent years deciding who was worthy of dignity. You used silence like a weapon. You thought people like me would never hold the gavel. Her eyes locked on his. Well, now you sit in the silence you built. To you, this ends in chains. To us, it starts with truth. She nodded to the officers. Take him away. They did. The courtroom didn't cheer. They just bore witness. And sometimes that's more powerful than applause. Celeste picked up the Monroe Mandate, lifted her robe, and said one last time, Court is adjourned. Her chambers felt quieter now, but not empty, not hollow. The kind of quiet that came after a storm, when the world was still catching its breath. A soft knock broke the moment. Nayan stepped in without a word. She crossed to the corner, pulled out a stool, and unwrapped a small pair of clippers. You ready? She asked. Celeste met her sister's eyes in the mirror. There was no fear in her gaze anymore. Just resolve, just peace. Yeah, she said softly. Let's finish it. Nain worked slowly, gently. Each pass of the clippers was deliberate. Nothing like the cruelty in that windowless room. No longer a violation. This time, it was a choice. Her choice. The last uneven strands fell away, and when Nain handed her the mirror, Celeste took her time before looking. What she saw wasn't fragile. It wasn't broken. It was bold, bare, and beautiful. You could rock that every damn day, Nain said, grinning, and still own every room you walk into. Celeste smiled faintly. This is who I am now. Nain shook her head. Number, this is who you've always been. Now the world sees it too. That night, Celeste walked out of the courthouse. No wig, no scarf, no armor. Just herself under the streetlights, her scalp bare, her head high. A small crowd had gathered. No cameras, no reporters, just people. An older woman stepped forward, her voice trembling. I never thought I'd live to see someone like you do what you just did. Celeste gently took her hand. You did more than live, she said. You paved the road. Behind her, a teenage girl removed her hoodie to reveal her own shaved head. She didn't speak. She didn't need to. Their eyes met, and something passed between them. Something quiet and unbreakable. That night, Celeste sat on her front porch, looking out over her quiet neighborhood. Inside, her phone buzzed. Calls, messages, headlines. She let them wait. Tonight wasn't about noise. It was about silence, the kind you could finally breathe in. The next morning, she returned to the courthouse. Nothing had changed on paper, but everything else had. She stepped through security. This time, there were nods. Quiet respect. The janitor saluted her with a fist over his chest. A young officer gave a quick thumbs up before glancing away, embarrassed. When she walked into the courtroom, no one needed to be told to stand. They already had. She sat, nodded once. Justice hadn't stopped. The calendar still held hearings, motions, cases to decide. But something had shifted. Something real. Justice now had a new shape, a new posture. It stood taller. It didn't apologize. It wasn't perfect, but it was present. The Monroe Mandate spread, first through the courthouse, then the district. Other judges adopted it. Calls came in from other states. A bill was drafted in Congress. Celeste didn't ask for any of it. She just didn't back down. And somehow, that was enough. Months later, she visited a middle school, invited to speak to a civics class. She expected 10 students and awkward silence. But the room was packed. They'd seen the trial, read the headlines, made signs. One was taped to the chalkboard. Be like Judge Monroe. The kids didn't ask easy questions. How did it feel when they cut your hair? Did you ever want to give up? Do you still believe in the system? Celeste answered them all. But that last question stayed with her. She looked at the girl who asked it. I don't believe in what the system was, she said. But I believe in what it can become. And I believe in people like you asking that question. That's how change begins. She cried in the car that day, for the first time in months. Not from pain, from hope. Not long after, the White House called. Celeste Monroe had been awarded the Presidential Medal of Justice. She accepted in silence, surrounded by those who had stood with her when it mattered. Nain, Reverend Hill, her clerk, Megan, now a law student. And in the back, quietly watching, the girl from the classroom. Celeste stepped to the podium. I wasn't supposed to be here, she began. Not because I wasn't qualified, but because systems like this weren't made with me in mind. Even when I made it, I was reminded I didn't belong. She paused. But I stayed, I stood, and I made them see me. This medal isn't mine alone. It belongs to every voice that was told to quiet down. Every person who saw the law and only felt fear. This is for them. And somewhere, across the state line, a man in a prison cell stared at the screen. Pale, hollow. The woman he tried to humiliate, now honored for the very strength he tried to erase. The screen went dark. But truth, it didn't go with it. Truth stayed. And this time, it had a name. Judge Celeste Monroe.